haven't got a mic, so I'm going to shout really loudly. So, first of all, hello, hello, hello. And thank you so much for supporting the event here this evening. We are broadcasting this live, so the first thing we've got to do is to do a big Guildford welcome to our online audience. So it gives me great pleasure and the honour of introducing Professor Max Lu, President and Vice Chancellor of Surrey University.
Thank you very much, Rob, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to welcome everyone to our beautiful campus, nested in Guildford among the wonderful Surrey Hills, and also to audience online. The University of Surrey is very delighted to be a partner to Surrey Hills and also the whole Surrey community in organizing the events today, the symposium, and also the early exhibitions. And it's also great to see so many enthusiastic young people exhibiting their projects outside, and they are our future. I think we are in good hands. So we are very pleased to be associated with the number of projects in conservation, also and broadly in sustainability with Surrey Hills. Our action plan, the Surrey Climate Action Plan, which highlight the university's commitment to environmental sustainability, was launched last year, and those of you will remember, we did an event on that, and I'm also proud to say that the sustainability is at the heart of our university, not only in teaching and research, but also in practice. Our recently published annual Sustainability Development Goals report details our strong commitment to creating a sustainable future, be that through our research, direct engagement with our local community, like Surrey Hills and the whole Guildford and Surrey community in many other projects. Our on-campus actions, such as the borehole that now supplies over 1 million litres of water a day. And please do download a copy of the report on our website. In the sustainability section of the website, it's quite easy to find it. If you Google University of Surrey SDG, you'll find it. So as part of our commitment to tackling current and emerging global challenges, we set the target of taking the University of Surrey to net zero carbon emission by 2030 as one of the few ambitious universities in the United Kingdom to do so. And next week, we will have the official launch of the Pan-University Institute for Sustainability that brings together expertise from all three faculties and all disciplines, from science, engineering, to social sciences, and arts, humanities, to health sciences. This institute aims to develop solutions to global challenges we face as a society. Early this year, our university was ranked 55th in the world by the Times Higher Education University Impact Ranking, according to our contribution to UN SDGs in all 17 goals. And our Global Center for Clean Air Research, I think some of you probably been to the one of the exhibitions in the Exploratorium today. This is a center that is thriving, is going to continue to enhance the local and international reputation and impact, and it pursues a global vision of clean air for all. And this is just a small footprint, if you like, of how our university is committed to conserving the nature beauty of the landscape and enhancing it for future generations. The theme of this year's symposium is very diverse. is very important. That is in diversity and inclusion, exploring how we can all thrive with nature. We are very proud that the university itself is a wonderful, diverse, and inclusive community, welcoming staff and students from 130 countries. Supporting our staff and students' well-being is a core priority here at Surrey, where we offer a range of support services and a campus where it is possible to find a natural heaven. And in a recent review at Surrey, the Nobel Prize winner, biologist Venki Ramakrishna, who gave a lecture a few weeks ago here, spoke about the importance of decompressing. And it's very important nowadays to look after our well-being for all our employees and students. How often the best ideas come when you are relaxed and away from the laboratory and offices. Getting out in the natural world is an ideal way to do this. It is a source of inspiration and place of transfiguration for our mental health and well-being. As someone who loves walking, I'm blessed to be surrounded by some of the most wonderful countryside in Surrey and indeed in the country. And there's certainly no excuse for not doing my 10,000 steps a day when you live in the Britain's leafiest county, like Surrey. So we do recognize the importance of how nature can support our learning and the creative environment. And I'm delighted that Greg Melly, an old colleague who's now the CEO of Surrey, the Blackwell Park Limited, has been working with Surrey Hills Society, Surrey Wildlife Trust, and the wonderful social enterprise, Surrey Choices, to manage the university's ancient woodlands. Our grounds here are home to some 1,600 trees, and it's really a very wonderful campus if you love to see different species of trees. And there are 320 different species, very, very deliberately chosen and planted here over many years, including 19 different species of oak. And speaking of oak, early this year, when we launched our philanthropic campaign, Future Says Surrey, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, our Chancellor, planted our first oak tree around the lake area. So have a look when you stroll around the lake when you come back to campus during the day. You will also find a number of wildlife projects, including Bucks Hotel, the hedgehog-friendly campus initiative, which provides places for hedgehogs to sleep and encourage food sources such as beetles, snails, and worms to develop. So I'm very pleased to say that we are already a silver hedgehog-friendly campus, now striving for gold in the future. And early this month, of course, some of you probably been to the exhibitions. We launched 2 innovation exploratorium exhibits here on campus to explore our research showing the impact nature has on us and also what we can do to conserve nature. So I'm pleased to hear several people I met earlier told me that they enjoyed the tour. If you haven't been, you're most welcome to come back anytime because they are open until April next year. They showcase Professor Prashant Kumar's research on urban heat islands and Dr. Tracy Shu's work in nature and well-being. So please do come back to visit whenever suits you. It is part of our partnership with Surrey Hills Arts and Surrey County Council and our other partners in the community to help co-create ecological green spaces in urban areas. The University of Surrey is a world leader in collaborating in interdisciplinary research on people and environmental relationships as well. And this is the behavior science and culture dimension to nature and conservation. So one leading academic is Professor Birgitta Gasleben. I try to get that right. An environmental psychologist, a very distinguished psychologist in our School of Psychology, who is also co-director of the 6.5 million ESRC-funded project that aims to champion environmental social science to tackle environmental challenges. So I'm delighted that Birgitta will later facilitate and chair a debate about how we can all thrive with nature. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough for me. It gives me great pleasure to hand over to Heather Kurzweil, the independent chair of the Surrey Hills Board, who will introduce the topic of Introduction and Nature Landscape for All. Heather.
Goodness me, this is a bit dazzling. Thank you very much indeed, Max. It's great to be working with the university, and thank you so much for letting us showcase our work at this annual symposium. Well, I guess it says loud and clear behind me who I am. Yes, it does. And I've been in this role for the past 3 years. It's a voluntary role. So welcome, everybody. It's so good to see so many friends here this evening, and I know they're online as well. Thank you all very much for coming. I had a ball going round the marketplace and met so many delightful and well-informed people. Thank you very much. The next slide, which should appear by magic behind me, yes, because Emma is tracking my every move. This is actually a page from the 2018 Government Environment Plan. And I think it's interesting that DEFRA chose to use the Surrey Hills as their main photograph. This is because the Surrey Hills are a national asset. We were designated an area of outstanding natural beauty back in 1958, only the second in England. AONBs, as they're called, but will in future be called national landscapes. But AONBs were created by the 1949 National Park and Access to the Countryside Act. That followed on from the 1946 National Health Act as one of the great and very popular pieces of post-war legislation. So that's where we derive from. Moving on 60 years, the 25-year Environment Plan of 2018 saw the government commission Julian Glover to review the 10 national parks and the 34 AONBs. And he made 26 proposals. One of them was that AONBs were as important and as effective as national parks. They should be renamed and promoted and given more money, we'll see whether that happens, as England's national landscapes, and they should be given stronger purpose. National landscapes, he was very clear, should be protected for the enjoyment of everyone. They're not our little local reserve, they're a national asset there for everybody. And I think the next slide shows women walking out from the mosque, Surrey Choices at work, wheelchairs at Box Hill, and shows how we're next to London. But Glover found a worrying lack of diversity in both the governments, the boards, and the enjoyment of our national landscapes. In national parks, just 1% of visitors are from black and ethnic minority communities. People with a disability are 10 times less likely to access the countryside. Shocking statistics. Glover challenges us as national landscapes to reach out to our whole catchment in everything that we do. And his words were, we need to actively connect all parts of society with these special places to support understanding, enjoyment, and the nation's health and well-being, as Max described when he said he goes out into the countryside for inspiration to have those ideas. And the Surrey Hills is a good place to meet this challenge because we are so much a resource for our neighbours in London. We have this wonderful landscape of chalk and green sand hills and vales, largely protected from development over the years by the Metropolitan Greenbelt, by careful local planning authorities, I think some are here this evening, and farmers and land managers who care in spite of all the challenges they face. Now, London's population hit a new high of 9 million people in 2020, and alongside that, we saw over the years a dramatic change to London's profile. It's now a vibrant, multiracial world city with the second largest immigrant population after New York. Surrey's population also has grown to 1.2 million, with 16% of our residents recording themselves as non-white British. So, we have a situation where we have more potential visitors, more residents in Surrey, and more people who are unfamiliar. It's not part of their tradition and their culture. They're unfamiliar with the countryside. And this all equals more pressure on our area. We all need to experience nature for our mental and physical well-being, but we share these spaces with vulnerable species like nightingales. I think the last nightingale is about to leave Bookham Common or has already left. And these species have dramatically declined. I'm happy to tell Max that he still has skylarks on university land. I see them regularly. Thank you for that. What to do? How do we resolve this conundrum? I haven't got the whole answer, of course, and we're relying on your ideas. But part of the answer is for us all to learn how to take more care of our landscape. And we have two actions here. We have an initiative with Surrey County Council to encourage all of us to take care of the green spaces and to feel more confident when we're visiting. So we're promoting a new version of the Countryside Code. It's all positive. It has no do nots in it. It's all positive with 5 simple messages. Be safe, leave as you find, protect, control your dog, and consider other people. And we have a wonderful range of, I'm not supposed to move too far from this mic, but we have a wonderful range of community champions. I think some of them are even here this evening. Did I see the horse riders up there somewhere? I've certainly seen the ramblers. There they are. We have this wonderful range of champions who are promoting the Countryside Code for us. Thank you all very much indeed. And secondly, with partners, we promote direct work on the ground in the landscape, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment. I think the next slide shows the opening of the Greenway, and it shows an evidence map. Now, because one of the exciting advances in my term at Surrey Hills has been that DEFRA and Natural England have agreed to review our boundary and to look to expand the Surrey Hills. And I was absolutely delighted earlier this year to see the fantastic engagement of our communities and residents, who earlier this year submitted over 2,000 pieces of evidence of natural beauty to Natural England. And that map shows you all the evidence that was the position of all the evidence that was submitted to Natural England by people who felt that their area was worthy of inclusion in an expanded AONB, or, sorry, national landscape. And I think this truly demonstrates that everybody really wants to protect our precious countryside. Thank you all. We eagerly await the proposed boundary for formal consultation. Now that is coming out early next year, late January, early February. Please watch out for it. Watch out for this consultation and hopefully respond positively. If our area were to reach or even cross the London boundary, it would increase our connectivity and our potential for outreach enormously. Meanwhile, lots of things have been happening on the ground. We have a Making Space for Nature programme with funding from DEFRA, and that's enabled a series of biodiversity and climate change projects. Our unit is tiny, but we work with partners, many of them in this room, to achieve so much more. I see Surrey Hills Society over there, Ken and Chris. Thank you all. A DEFRA farming fund enabled our Surrey Hills Society and other volunteers to plant 7 miles of hedgerows, and you could join in with this. Contact Surrey Hills Society and you can go off and plant hedges or trees. Our Surrey Hills enterprises, the businesses, have planted thousands of trees. They hold days, corporate days, when they go off and plant trees as a gang. Take a tree home tonight. These trees that you see here, and lots more out there, are for you to take home and plant. If you can't get it in your car, just take the top off, it won't matter, because it'll grow anyway. Take it home and plant it, because that's your contribution to planting trees in the Surrey Hills. And then through great partners like Surrey Choices, they were here this evening, and they give life chances to people with learning difficulties. And they go out on site. It helps traditionally excluded groups to help us by the great practical work that they do in the landscape. They thrive with nature in the Surrey Hills, they really do. Our arts programme is another outreach. With help from the Tilford Mosque, an artist walked the countryside with a group of women who later created beautiful embroideries of what they'd seen. These Seeds of Hope sculptures, these ones here, it looks like sort of atoms, doesn't it? But they're Seeds of Hope sculptures. And they were part of a harvest event where the National Trust, Mole Valley Council, and Surrey Hills Arts brought people together to celebrate the landscape through the arts. It's another way of getting an entirely different community out into the Surrey Hills and to engage with the landscape. This was all part of a Nature Connections programme funded by Natural England. Artist Diana Birch worked outdoors. We have another artist with us this evening doing great work over there, with groups including refugees, people with depression and Alzheimer's, to connect with each other and with the natural world. I want to share with you a short video showing how different people interact with our national landscape. And it's set to the music of Harbour by Anna Tabush, who features in the video. Let's hope the right button works. The stormy waters, come walk ashore, bring your sons and bring your daughters, wander no more, for our door is always open, and our hearth is always warm. When you need a place to shelter, we're a harbor in the storm. There'll be time for rest and sleeping. Come walk ashore. There'll be space for peace and healing. Wander no more, for our door is always open, and our hearth is always warm. When you need a place to shelter, we're a harbor in the storm. For in days of lesser fortune, come
shelter. We're a harbor in the storm.
So the question is how to open that door wider. It's positive to see so much activity undertaken by our Surrey Hills family and partners, but we know that so much more could be done for people to thrive with nature. We're here to listen, to be inspired, to be re-energized by you and your ideas. I am an impatient granny. Life is now short for me, and we grannies, want to see change before we go. DEFRA has recognised this need for change, and we've secured £430,000 to invest in Access for All. So our call to action for you this evening is to reflect on the debate and give us your ideas on how we can invest this funding in our national landscape to achieve more open doors. Could you put a project forward for funding? Give it some thought. Over to you, Birgitta. Where is she? There she is, to lead the way with your fantastic panel of speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Heather. That was very inspiring. Oh, you can't see anything from here. This is it's very strange. My name is Birgitta Gaasleber. I am a professor of environmental psychology here at the University of Surrey, and I have the honor to host this debate of 4 fantastic speakers who are going to share some of their thoughts, some of their experiences with us in a minute. They're each going to introduce themselves to everyone. Tell us a little bit about themselves, and then they're going to sit over there, and then we can ask them some questions. So their names are Judy, Haroon, Stephanie, and Ashley. They're over here. So as I said, they'll introduce themselves in a minute. Before they do that, I would like all of you to put your hands up in response to 3 questions. When I asked these questions to my husband, he said, well, it depends. That is not an allowed answer. You can only have yes or no. Okay, the first question. How many people here in the audience believe that there is plenty of room in the Surrey Hills for everyone? Excellent. This is the vast majority of people. And how many people agree that we must improve access to the countryside for those who need it? Marvelous. I should pick on the people who don't put their hands up, really. This is going to be interesting. Now, how many people agree that we also must manage visitor numbers to protect wildlife and biodiversity? Again, the vast majority of people put their hands up, so we can see here that this is one of the challenges that we are here to talk about. How do we do this? How do we encourage people and encourage everyone to sort of reap the benefits of being in the beautiful Surrey countryside? I've been told that we're already running late, obviously. This is what happens. So I shall quickly hand over to our first speaker. Judy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Birgitta, is there something to advance the slides? You can there it is. Do I just press that?
If you press
this.
If you press this one or roll down, it should work.
Okay, I'll see what happens.
Try out and see what happens.
It's not on yet. I'm going to.
The magic buttons.
Oh, is that better? Okay. So, good evening to you all. It's my pleasure to be with you all. As you can see on the slide, the countryside is also ours, was our very first initiative in 1987. That was a long time ago, and we've come a long way, you know. When you work with ethnic minorities, it's like a moving target. There are those you've worked with for a long time, but newcomers keep coming, and they are newcomers, and you need to start the process over again. But this group of people here are people who want to farm in the countryside. They're determined to get land so that their relationship to land from their heritage and so on could come alive again in the countryside for them. And they are actually meeting at the very first halal farm, just outside Oxfordshire, and you can see Lufti, he's Pakistani, but he's very pale-skinned, note that, and they're all looking forward to what they can do in the countryside. So we're very aware that who we are and what we can achieve depends on how we see ourselves against the enormous pressure of how others see us. This is very important. It's true for everybody. When you go to a job interview, people look at you in a particular way, and how they look determines your future. So for minorities, it's much more important, of course. And what we have is, the history of it is that Ben is very proud to say that in 1987, when we first started, 100% of environmental organizations in the sector did not even think about ethnic minorities, never mind doing anything, which was why Ben was actually set up by a small group of people, including myself. And we're very proud that we've come to today where we can say 100% of the organizations in the environmental sector has it on the agenda. Not that sometimes they do it to the extent that we would like to see or to the quality that we would like to see. So I always say that after 30 years of environmental participation, I can collapse the entire process into two phrases. We enjoy what we love, and we actually protect what we love. Then that takes you from the beginning of contact with nature and access, the very beginning, loving it through enjoyment, and then saying, my goodness, if this belongs to us, shouldn't we take care of it? We want to learn and be part of it like everybody else. So these are some of the practical things that we need to do when we talk about participation and so on. The first thing, of course, especially for newcomers, is provide a welcome, but you need to keep providing a welcome. So support access to a range of urban and rural environmental sites by trained environmental professionals with outreach skills. This is fundamental. And then nurture interest and deepen the environmental knowledge and connection, because that too is fascinating and enjoyable and interesting, and also leads to jobs, for example. And we need them to think about that as well. And the key is repeated visits. That's what we do. Sometimes the people who have access to the countryside take it for granted. They've forgotten that ever since they were children, they were there in the countryside, they loved it, they want to protect it. This is the human process. But they repeatedly went to places. And of course, if you have a history of living in the countryside, your parents had their favorite places. You went to the best to start off with. And we want this experience for newcomers where they can come and enjoy a place, repeat to the extent that it becomes ours, the ownership, the sense of belonging, and the confidence to independently go into the countryside. So start off with a group, the sense of community, enormously important, going to a strange place, supported by environmental professionals who guide you through the landscape. Because if you go into a vast space, if you're a newcomer, where on earth do you go? So all these things are really important to see the most interesting things on that site and to learn about nature and therefore become very interested. So use the arts and link into many aspects of culture. Culture crosses between different art aspects and so on and brings people together. Train ethnic minority champions. And I have this term called in-reach versus outreach. And you will all have heard about the Mosaic Project for National Parks, where we trained 200 ethnic minority champions for the national parks across England and Wales. So there were 200 of them. Vast amounts of money were actually invested. And they were taken into national parks and trained. They know all the trails, they know every activity there's to offer. They know the managers, they can negotiate. They can look at their own community and do a risk assessment of the site and so on. So very skilled people who can take people in. But alas, when that project ended, there was no more investment in the money for disadvantaged groups, which is so simple. You need to get there It is very far away and it's very expensive. So the repetition actually stopped at that stage, which was a great, great pity because so much had been built up. But not all was lost because those champions with experience then took that experience and took their communities to nearby spaces in the urban areas, the nearby countryside, and so on. But everyone has a right to go very far away and see our magnificent countryside. And when you see the magnificence, you're inspired in such a way that when you go home, you are different people. And that is what we want to see. So partnering with non-environmental minority community organizations. And we must remember that when we work with minority groups, most of them belong to non-environmental charities. So there is also a lifting up of expertise and so on, where we negotiate with them in a particular way and enable them to learn the skills and knowledge to negotiate properly and successfully with environmental organizations that are professional, to say what they want, but to also see the opportunities and so on. And then you work towards representation in decision-making structures. As I said, we've arrived at the point where not at square one. There are many of us highly experienced. We can sit on those committees and be part of the picture. And I always say that those that are most affected should lead, because then you get all the right things on the agenda. And of course, continuation, when we take people into countryside, in the same trend, you know, in the voluntary sector, most of the organizations are initially set up by clued up middle-class people who themselves are privileged and want to see change. And then when we have ethnic minority organizations, you see the same pattern. Many of those who actually set up things, they're from middle classes, they're confident, they're clued up and so on. And the whole funding system, which is directed at the poorest and most disadvantaged, often direct newcomers in terms of disadvantage, whereas there are actually many newcomers in the middle classes as well. But because the middle classes are associated with those organizations, they then pick up on it. And you see nowadays, many people from middle class are going in their cars and going off in the countryside quite confidently, whereas those who are disadvantaged are still left behind. You know, in London, which is vast, and we've got wonderful stretches of nature in London. We've got a national nature reserve, which is Richmond Park in the west of London. And it is such that even within London itself, the people on the east who are disadvantaged cannot even afford the tube fare to go to the west of London. So these are the issues we are faced with. So resource and funding for disadvantaged groups, that's not on and off, but continuous, and building a relationship to the extent that you know them and you become part of the community. And when that happens, a relationship of working with minorities become a relationship that's about a constant consultation. You don't need to do special consultations. You know what is needed and so on. So the other thing is providing opportunities of volunteering and training. As I said, champions and so on are important. Youngsters especially wanting to aspire to jobs and access to green jobs. So this is a very big opportunity staring us in the face. The government has actually investing 12 billion, and they aim to have 2 million new green jobs. Now that is some opportunity, and we want disadvantaged groups to be part of this. So let's get to grips with this and talk to all the aspects of it and talk about whether there are new things we want. I actually chair the Green Apprenticeship Advisory Panel, which is about formulating appropriate apprenticeships so that we get high quality trained people in green jobs that pay well and are good jobs and so on. So if you want to talk to me, you are very welcome. But this is a great, great opportunity in front of us. As I said, we're not at square one. Building visibility of minorities is important. About a couple of years ago, an organization called the DOC Society, DOC standing for documentary, and they make documentary films about positive and happy actions that actually address climate change. Very interesting. So they went to the media and they said, how come we don't see any ethnic minorities to the appropriate extent on the media? And you know what the media says? Where do you find them? So DOC Society was very clever. They did a research project, and lo and behold, Climate Reframe website. The Climate Reframe database is an open database. It lists 100 of the most established minority activists and experts, so nobody has any excuse now. But it has moved the goalposts. It's really interesting. People organize conferences, workshops, do consultations and all that. They're all using this database to find the activists and the experts. And it is now moving into a second phase where it says, instead of just the established ones, we want to help emerging voices to become established. So you might be some of the people who spot minorities among yourselves and nominate them to come on the database. But it does not just to be for ethnic minorities. This is a great model for any disadvantaged groups. When you want to highlight their presence, put a database together of the active people so they can see each other and network. And if you want to work with people, you find them very easily. So climate reframe, as you can see, the categories are remarkable. Youth activists, urban planners and architects, scientists, political candidates, you name it, they are there. So you're talking from many different directions connected with climate and environment. And here are some of them. You'll probably have heard about some of them. Islamic Environment Network and so on. And some of them do their own thing. For example, Wisdom in Nature. They're not very visible outside. They do their own thing. They want to go very deep into the cultural visions of nature, of their culture, and talk a lot about the philosophy of nature besides just going into the countryside. So people in universities, people in the Green Party, where people land in our names, is a wonderful acronym, LION. They want to get there, and they are very aggressive. Some ethnic minorities are now very confident. If you're not into the theme of reparations, they don't want to talk to you. So, don't assume that all minorities are timid. They are now rising up the agenda, and their voices. Willowbrook's Farm, of course, I've already talked about. And we have lots of artists working on communicating climate and environment and so on. People using the outside for psychotherapy. There's people in the Heritage Lottery Fund shaping grant schemes and so on. Many of them are working in all directions. The university brings in the International Symposium Urban Futures and gets the conversation going not just locally, nationally, but internationally. And of course, debates at university. Our universities, like our chancellor said, are so multicultural. And Sheffield did a wonderful debate not many years ago. So environmental justice means people-centered policy set within an integrated approach, bringing together social, cultural, environmental, and economic dimensions. And Wales leads the way with the Well-being of Future Generations Act. And you see those 4 words? Economic, social, environmental, and cultural well-being. We said that in 1987, and now it's in the policy. So in 1987, we said there's no such thing as a purely environmental initiative. A so-called purely environmental initiative is one that has rejected its social, cultural, and economic dimensions. And you can swap those 4 words. You can say, a so-called purely economic project is one that's rejected its social, cultural, and environmental dimensions. So this integrated approach is what really gets people going, because then you talk about not just the environment as nature, you talk about livelihoods, you talk about the richness of life, you talk about health and well-being, and all those things, and people's local environments, air pollution, soil, and everything that you can think of. So, to conclude, working with disadvantaged and socially excluded groups is not about doing favors to small groups of people. It is about working towards a vision of an inclusive society of which we can all be proud. And of course, working for equal and full multicultural environmental participation and access is very much a thing we need to do as a key to what we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, let's save our questions for a minute, and I'll hand over to Haroon. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Haroon, the founder of Active Inclusion Network and Muslim Hikers. I'm going to give you a little idea of the work that we do, how it originated, and why we do it. A little bit about me. I'm a British Asian Muslim from the city of Coventry, and I'm dreading traveling back home tonight. So let's hope we can finish on time. I'm a marathon runner and a mountaineer, but I never grew up involved in sport. So the things I do now and the passions I have are very much derived from the lack of opportunity that presented itself when I was young. So much so that 20 years ago, when I first stumbled upon the outdoors, I fell in love with it. And when I started climbing mountains, they started calling me the Muslim mountain man. And at the time, I thought, wow, this is cool. You know, it's a cool name to have. You know, it makes me stand out amongst my peers. And then 10 years ago, when I started running marathons, guess what they called me? Yeah, the Muslim marathon man. And again, at the time, I thought, this is great. It looks good on social media and in the newspapers. But anyway, like, in more recent times, upon reflection, when I started campaigning for diversity and inclusion, it made me think, like, why was it strange that someone of color or someone of my background was doing something or trying to excel in sport? It shouldn't be strange. This should be normal, and it shouldn't become a reason to become labeled. So people often ask, you know, so what are the barriers, or why is it you can't access the outdoors? What are the reasons? What are the hindrances? And often the biggest or the most fundamental issue is simply the fact that we have the lack of outdoors embedded within our cultural and lifestyle norms. It's not anything else, it's simply that. My parents didn't explore the outdoors. My friends didn't. My uncles and aunties didn't. My grandparents won't have. So why would it be the norm for me? And that's the case for many people of the Muslim community here in the UK, which is predominantly of the South Asian sort of community backgrounds, the same communities that are affected by the greatest health inequalities. And that is something that I'm working so hard towards changing. I just need to see my screen here. So we're talking about the lack of the outdoors being embedded within our cultural and lifestyle norms. That also accounts for the lack of confidence and awareness of the outdoors. If we don't know the outdoors exist, you know, where are we going to travel to get our freedom, or why are we going to travel to a particular place? Underrepresentation exists. You know, they say you can't be what you can't see. I grew up not having role models, and if you don't see people like yourself and you only associate these natural, beautiful environments, the British countryside, as places where white people go, then it will always be that for us, and we will never see ourselves in them spaces. So, moving on. So, during the pandemic, I felt like I wanted to create change. I've been exploring the outdoors, and I've been rallying communities through mainly charity hiking. I hiked the Himalayas and climbed Kilimanjaro, hiked South America, the Andes, and I was using charity hiking to rally people from my communities. But when the pandemic came, when we were all stuck at home, I felt like I wanted to do more to bring community together. So I created the Muslim Hikers Instagram page. If you're not following it, please do get on it. And on Twitter, and on Instagram, on Facebook, and everywhere. Anyway, I created the Muslim Hikers Instagram page purely for the purpose of creating online community. It was a time where we knew there was a lot of loneliness, isolation, and we wanted to tackle that. And we also wanted to try and empower people and try to normalize the outdoors for people of our community. So this Instagram page grew so rapidly, not just here in the UK, but globally. It received so much appreciation, and we realized that there was a massive gap in community for the outdoors. So people started asking us to organize events, and that's what we did in July last year. We organized our first hike in North Wales, and that was very much the birth of Muslim Hikers, which has now grown to become the largest community in the world for Muslims who are interested in the outdoors. We didn't invent the wheel, we simply created an Instagram page which made people perhaps feel welcome, or perhaps just simply normalizing the outdoors for our communities. Now, we organise monthly walking events, and we've been visiting the Surrey Hills as well. These walking events take place in various national parks across the UK and AOMBs, and these are now considered to be the largest known regular walking events in the country. Every single month we're out, and we have people from different parts of the UK travelling to join us. So our work is kind of categorized into 3 different elements. One is events. So our events promote safety, confidence, and awareness in the outdoors. Often people who wouldn't consider visiting the outdoors are choosing to do so because we're promoting safety in numbers, and we're organizing events that aren't judging people. There's about 70% female participation in our events, and that is indicative of the fact that perhaps Muslim women have even greater barriers to accessing the outdoors than normal people, and we are catering for those needs. So our events are hugely popular. We've even had people travel from outside of the UK to join our walks. Just a couple of months ago, we had a girl travel all the way from Sweden to join us for a hike up Snowdon. I had to contact her and ask if she was feeling all right. I found that a little bit strange. She said she loves hiking, but in Stockholm, she doesn't have inclusive communities, and she stumbled upon our Facebook page, and she thought, I want to go to that. She asked her father if she could go to the UK for a hike, and he said, yes, I'll take you. So they caught a flight to Manchester. They got a lift to North Wales via one of our WhatsApp groups, had an amazing time on the hike, got a lift back to Manchester, then they flew home. And I thought, that's phenomenal. And then just last month, we were hiking the Brecon Beacons. We finished our walk, Pen y Fan. 2 girls walked up to me afterwards and said, hey, Haroon, we're 2 sisters, Sahara and Sarah, and we've come from New York. I was like, you what? Like, they came from New York to join us for a hike. And I said, why? They said they were looking for hiking groups in the States. They were looking on Google. They couldn't find any, but they found Muslim Hikers, which was UK-based. So they booked a 7-day holiday in the UK just so they can join our hike. And I thought, wow. And what that tells me is that community is everything. And it's the very reason why we launched Muslim Hikers. And it's the very principle for all of our events. People want to connect with nature, yes, but they also want to do it with people. They want to connect with people where they feel safe. So the first element of our work is events. Our second strand of work is communication, building awareness of the outdoors. So that's all of our work in the digital space. It's what we promote through our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's trying to normalize us being in the outdoors and creating inspirational content. I am running short on time, so I'm going to have to hurry. I'd love to tell you more about the different strands of our work, but hopefully you can follow us and connect with us online. Just going to run through a few pictures. This was our first hike in July last year up Snowdon. This was our Christmas Day hike in the Peak District, the hike which kind of made us a little bit famous because we received quite a bit of racist abuse online afterwards. If you followed us or follow the news stories, after pictures of our hike were shared in a Facebook group, supposedly a walking group for people in the Peak District, we received a massive amount of abuse. Of course, from a minority of people, but so much so that it was picked up and it wasn't very kind. However, it didn't deter us, and we've grown so much more, and we've received so much solidarity and support, especially from the ally community as well. Just in the first 2 weeks of January, we gained about an extra 20,000 followers across our social media pages. So I said, thank you to all the racist people out there. Just 2 weeks ago, we appeared on BBC Countryfile. I don't know if anyone watched it, but again, we received so much abuse. I don't know why it happens, but it's an indication that Islamophobia and racism exists out there. And again, this is another barrier that perhaps prevents and hinders some of our communities from getting outside. Beautiful picture from a collaboration we did with the National Trust earlier this year in the month of Ramadan During the month of Ramadan, Muslims are fasting, not eating or drinking, so they're probably not considering doing any exercise, let alone traveling to a national park to go for a beautiful hike. But we're trying to challenge stereotypes and get people out of their comfort zone. So we took over Island Park, the beautiful estate in the Peak District. Not only did we have a beautiful walk, but we had an open iftar under the skies. So we broke our fast in a celebration meal that was beautiful. Experience is really important for us. What more can we do to ensure that someone visiting a national park for the first time can have a positive experience, because that's going to impact on whether they consider going again, or it impacts on how they communicate their experience online, which will hopefully inspire more people. You'll see plenty of this on our social media pages, so please do check it out. Here's a beautiful picture from our Box Hill hike. This was our first hike in the south. Traditionally, most of our walks tend to happen in the Peak District, in Yorkshire, North Wales, the Lake District, and the London community have been crying out to us saying more hikes in the south, please. So we did our first hike thanks to Emma and all of the team at Surrey Hills, AONB and the National Trust. It was a beautiful day, and I'll be showing you a short film in a moment, a very brief testimony from one of the girls who had a great time. I'm flashing through my slides now because I'm going to get in trouble for taking too long. Let's watch that short film.
I'm Haroon, founder of Active Inclusion Network and Muslim Hikers. We're here today with the Surrey Hills AONB and National Trust team, enjoying a beautiful walk of Box Hill. We've just stopped for lunch here at Surrey Outdoor Learning. We've had a very delicious cooked meal that everyone's enjoying behind us. The vibes are great, the walk's been fantastic, the weather's good as well. It's great to finally have our first walk here in the south of the country. We've been having so many requests from our communities to have walks that are more accessible to London, and this is just 20 miles down the road. There's such a huge demand for inclusive walks like ours. After we announced this walk, it was sold out in less than 24 hours, and it's great to be working with the Surrey Hills AONB team and National Trust to put on this event, and empowering more people to get outside. For us Muslims, our faith is paramount. It's fundamental to our daily life and everything we do. So when we're out hiking, traveling, adventuring, that doesn't stop our prayers. So we'll always factor in time and space to do our prayers. I guess being outside here is a great chance for us to connect with nature. And when we connect with nature, it's a chance for us to remember our God. Hiking can sometimes be quite spiritual in that way as well. It gives us a chance to reflect and contemplate and ponder upon the deeper purpose of life. And we've been having great conversations with people here about how they're feeling and how much this reminds them of the importance of their faith as well.
I'm Zara Rose, I'm here with Muslim Hikers today. I look after their social media, and today we're walking up from the National Trust to enjoy Box Hill. I've been to Box Hill, but I went the other side where you kind of drive up and enjoy the views of London, seeing other people have so much fun and people who have never left the city, and they haven't realised that this has been like on their doorstep this entire time. So just exploring new areas with new people and wonderful faces.
Hi, my name is Saqib. It's my first time coming to Muslim Hikers. I've heard about the group for about a year. I enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy trying to get more into physical fitness, but also connecting with more Muslims as well. No, I've never been to this part of Surrey before. It's an absolutely picturesque day, away from screens, away from whatever's been concerning me this week. Like, everyone's so nice, everybody's so kind and welcoming. It's just been a really good day so far.
I'm Sarah, this is my sister Nina, so we're from South London, so it's good to actually explore our local area. We've been to like the Midlands and like the Peak District and other areas, so it's good to be local.
The clouds have been pretty incredible today. Nice to take pictures of.
It's always interesting, you always meet new people, new ideas.
It's pretty nice to see like how everyone just goes straight into deep conversations.
And some people, I don't even know their name, I'm like, I need to go back and ask you what your name is, because we had this deep conversation and I can't remember what your name is.
It's been a great day so far, lots more fun to be had, and I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has turned up today, and most importantly to the Surrey Hills AOMB team and for National Trust for working with us to support our community to get outside.
Hopefully, the first of many collaborations with the wonderful team at Surrey Hills AOMB. Our walks are for everyone, they're not just for Muslim. We're not going to convert you to Islam to get you to join a walk. It is in the name, Muslim hikers, we have to explain this sometimes to people. That's purposefully our name so that we can target Muslim communities who don't go outside enough. But everyone is welcome, and we love it when we see our non-Muslim friends join us. So please do come and join us anytime. You're most welcome. Feel free to check us out on social media, and handing over to Stephanie. Thank you for listening.
So if I'm looking at that and reading notes, it's only because I'm prompting myself. Hello everybody, I'm Stephanie Fudge. I am the General Manager of the Surrey Hills National Trust. And between myself and my team, we look after some 5,000 hectares of the Surrey Hills and over 100 buildings and monuments. And it's a real privilege to have this job. And I also want to say that it's a real privilege to be on this stage alongside people like Judy, Haroon and Ash over there, who are absolutely inspirational. So thank you very, very much. So, hopefully I know how to tab. Here we go. You're right. So, we all want quiet. We all want beauty. We all need space. Unless we have it, we cannot reach that sense of quiet in which whispers of better things come to us gently. We had 3 inspirational founders of the National Trust who wanted to make a difference. And those are the words of one of the founders, Octavia Hill. She said those words in 1883. Are they relevant today? So, I feel they're relevant. They speak to me. When I stand on the edge of the Devil's Punch Bowl at the viewpoint, looking over the valley, the call of the wild comes to me. When I stand at the top of Leith Hill, on top of the tower, looking over the Weald towards the South Downs and seeing nothing but green in the most populated part of the UK, it speaks to me. When I stand by the pond at Frensham Little Pond, by tranquil water, looking at low winter sunlight coming through the pine trees, reflecting on the tranquil waters, it speaks to me. When I hear the reed warblers and their babies singing in the spring, it speaks to me. When I stand at the top of Denby's hillside looking over the Tillingbourne Valley in the middle of summer, it's beautiful. And then at Box Hill, yes, we're busy. We have a hubbub of people coming to our visitor centre so they can feel safe. But 10 minutes away from our visitor centre and our car parks, we can be somewhere really, really quiet. You can go down to the Happy Valley, you can go to any of the valleys, you can sit on a hillside and feel part of it. You can feel part of nature, sit there for a while, and stand up, go back to work. That's why I do the job that I do. So, we know that the health and well-being benefits of nature are well documented. We've heard about some today. DEFRA has for many years aligned the numbers of birds with the quality of life indices. We have heard lots about nature deficit disorder for children, and the fact if somebody's living in an urban environment, they're suffering from that. The National Trust carried out research in 2020, so just 2 years ago, and they found that there are more links. If people feel connected to nature, they feel happier and they feel healthier. So this is just children, and it's adults as well. However, the reality of today, look at those stats. 80% of children do not take part in activities which give them connectedness to nature. Some 19% of adults do not spend their time in nature. Only 19% of adults do not spend time in nature to feel better and feel more healthy. Connecting with nature is not an everyday habit. We are a nation of people who don't tend to do the things which will bring them closer to nature. Many children have not been to the countryside from urban environments. Many children in urban environments have not seen a cow. And doctors are prescribing time in nature as an antidote to depression and anxiety. How has it come to this, that we're not doing it ourselves? Octavia Hill's thoughts in 1883 are still very relevant today. So, yet, people need nature more than ever before. When the nation was at its neediest, this is the height of the pandemic, these are pictures of Box Hill at the height of the pandemic, in the lockdowns. People flooded to the countryside. Yes, nowhere else was open, but 80% of the people who came to our properties at the Surrey Hills during that time had never been to the countryside before, particularly at Box Hill. And they really enjoyed it. And they came back. And they returned, which is amazing. However, this brought challenges. When they walked to a quiet place, they felt unsafe. They also left litter and left gates open for cows to get out. So there are some challenges around new people coming to the countryside. David Attenborough said, "No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced." Many people who visited through the pandemic clearly had not been in the countryside before. They did not know what it felt like, or indeed how to act in the countryside. Therefore, our challenge is this: how can we make a day in the outdoors mean more, so that over time they are able to care and help us look after our environment? So this is a picture from the top of Reigate Hill. It looks over Reigate and it looks over Red Hill. I could take you to somewhere that looks over Dorking or Guildford or Woking or Hazelmere. And the other side of Reigate Hill, the view looks over to London. It's the best view from the Surrey Hills of the City of London, just 20 miles away. So we're very, very close. We're right in the middle of the urban environment. We're on the urban fringe. We have numerous train stations. People can cycle out from the city. They walk. They do come in cars, but they walk up and down hills and they walk for long distances. The Surrey Hills, being so close to an urban environment, are so well placed to be that first gateway to nature for many. So our job at the National Trust is to welcome all those first-time visitors to the countryside and ask them to help us look after it. So, we've been experimenting with different things. We know that when many people came over the pandemic and for many years, where we've had areas of land which are, well, there's lots and lots of footfall, it means that the grasslands and nature can become eroded. So we've got an experiment happening at Box Hill at the moment. The Burford Spur part of the Burford Spur has been roped off. And we're asking people to walk around it. That's never happened before. but we're also telling them why. We're showing them pictures of the things which could come back if they help us look after that land and do not walk in the area that we roped off. And people are liking that. And also, we're seeing that the grass fund is coming back. This summer, we had a programme of connecting people with nature, the Summer of Butterflies 2022. We placed 8 interpretation boards across the Surrey Hills in areas which are well frequented but not necessarily are visitor hubs. And within those, on those nature boards, there was access to trails, butterfly spotters, and podcasts by experts. The feedback was fantastic. It was an experiment, but it worked. People really liked it, they engaged with it, and the download of those podcasts was really quite big, so that was brilliant. And in connecting people with nature, there is something about getting people to understand the landscape more so they can look after it, help us look after it, but also there's something about taking people to a place so that they can get to care about it. So they've got access, they've got physical access. So over the last 3 years, despite COVID, we have done quite a lot. We have built all-weather paths for access for everyone. We have put in benches for wheelchair users at our cafes. We've put in a changing places toilet at Hindhead. We've put in a new car park with more accessible spaces. We have we've got a mobility scooter at Box Hill, and we're buying another one for the Devil's Punch Bowl. And we're doing lots more. We're working with the Surrey Coalition of Disabled People. They recently undertook some audits at both Box Hill and Hindhead, and we should get more information about what else we can do. We would also welcome your views about what we can do more in the Surrey Hills to make our sites more accessible. So, going back to Octavia Hill, in summary, we can bring nature and people together to benefit both. In the words of our founder, our lives are overcrowded, overexcited, overstrained. We all want quiet, we all want beauty, we all need space. Unless we have it, we cannot reach that sense of quiet in which whispers of better things come to us gently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. I'm going to hand over to our very final, the last very inspiring speaker. I think we've had some very inspiring talks already. Are you ready, Ashley?
Yeah.
Yeah? So I'll hand over to you. I don't know where you...
I'll just go here.
Excellent. There
well,
we go.
I can sit behind there. All you can see is my forehead then. Can I just say what a great event this has been so far, and it's been brilliant to hear from all the speakers so far. Hopefully I can do as good a job as you guys have. So as you can tell, I'm Ashley. Hi. This is my first time talking in front of a big crowd, so do bear with me a little bit. So, Emma, do you want to go to the next one? Thanks. This is the embarrassing part for me. This is me when I was younger. So as you can tell, I've always had an interest in nature and animals. And I even, when I was younger, thought it'd be really funny to be Dr. Dolittle for a bit. So I went to the zoo and I went up to the brown bear cage and I went, "Hi bear," never for a minute expecting the bear to actually reply with a roar, which was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. But the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that in all these pictures so far, I've been able-bodied. And that's because when I was 11, I had an accident whilst training for a Help for Heroes bike ride, and now instead of running around, I wheel around the woodlands. When I first had my accident, I had a lot of negativity around getting outside and actually carrying on with the things that I'd been doing when I was able-bodied. And that was really hard, but eventually I got the right people around me, and they helped me to realise that I can do anything I used to be able to do. I just do it differently. So an outdoor event that I volunteered at really helped me do it. And as you can see here, I still get out and do stuff. I'm still quite crazy. Even in the rain, I do get out, and I even get mud thrown at me by kids, which was great fun. But over the past couple of years, I've been lucky enough to start volunteering with the Surrey Wildlife Trust to pursue my career in the outdoors. I've been lucky that with my volunteering, I've been able to educate children about different nature and wildlife. It's been brilliant. The kids get so much confidence when they're talking to me, and they ask me questions about my wheelchair and why I'm wheeling rather than running with them. They also tell me to slow down on the hills when I'm going downhill, but I think that's just because they think I'm going to run them over. To talk a little bit more about my internship, we recently created a video. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Ash. I have an internship with the Surrey Wildlife Trust, and we're here on this lovely autumn day at one of our education centres. Ever since I was young, I've had a strong connection to nature. I've always been adventurous, wanting to be outdoors all the time. I always feel much happier having been outdoors, to be able to see, feel, hear everything that's around me. It just has such a calming effect. For me, going out into the woods makes me feel like I'm achieving stuff, more awake, more alive, like you should be feeling. Whether it's with my camera and taking photos, or looking for something that I've not seen before to learn about, looking under the logs and rocks to see if I can find any invertebrates or reptiles. I'm always getting out camping with my dog. My dog absolutely loves camping. She's claimed her own spot in the tent. It just brings me right back to my core, where I am happiest, and that's outdoors. I'm very lucky in the fact that I get to do what I enjoy for my job. I get to engage with people and allow them to hopefully get the experience and feel what I feel when I'm in nature. If I can help people to feel even half as good as I feel in nature, then I've done what I've set out to achieve. One of the things that I thought when I first had my accident was that I wouldn't be able to enjoy nature the way I was enjoying it. That is so not true. No matter what your ability, nature is for everyone. You can just get out, find a local park even. If you can't get out to a park, you can watch nature. If you find that you're having issues with different sites, let the people who run the sites know that. Let them know what parts are accessible, what parts aren't, and just get out there.
So as you can see, a lot of what I do is around engaging people about nature. And a lot of the time I get asked different animal identifications, and something I found very common is that people get newts and lizards confused. And so now we're on to my favourite part of my presentation. This is where you guys get to get involved. So you don't have to know anything, don't worry, it's just a bit of fun. So I decided to create a little game I like to call Newt or Lizard. So for this, I am going to be showing you some pictures of newts and lizards. And what I'd love for you guys to do, everyone in the audience, I would love you, if you think it's a lizard, if you can just do an L for me in the air, if you think it's a lizard. If you think it's a newt, I thought it'd be cool to get you guys doing the sign language for N. so for newt, which is your palm up in the air with your 2 fingers across your palm, and that's your N. So, are we all ready? Brilliant. Right, first one, do we think this is a lizard or a newt? Oh, there's a lot of people getting it. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so this is our common lizard, and as the name suggests, it's quite common. You do find it quite often. We're going on to another one, a little bit harder. What do we think about this one? Yeah, you guys are getting good at this. Have you seen this already? Yeah, this is our great crested newt. So this is one of our rare species in the UK. And look at that belly, how cool is that? So this one, what do we think? Lizard or newt? Yeah, you guys are good at this. Okay, so yes, this is our slow worm. It is a lizard. A lot of people get it confused with snakes because, as you can see, they have no legs, so they're our legless lizard. Coming on to the next one. This one's really hard. So this one was taken under a bridge. What do we think it is, lizard or newt? Oh, interesting. So this one is actually a stretchy toy. True story, my friend actually sent me that picture asking me what type of lizard it was, and I had the unfortunate thing to have to tell them it's actually a stretchy toy. So as you can see, you don't need to know much about, I never gave you any inclination on what the difference between a newt or a lizard is, but you all had a good go at it and you all got engaged with it. And so that's the same with nature, just getting out into nature. You don't have to know anything about it, but wanting to learn or just have a bit of fun. So that was a really good evening for me. I'm glad you all seemed to get involved, and I'm really grateful for everyone having me here to listen to. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, speakers. Would you like to come back? Sorry, Ashley, you're going to have to wheel back again, just when you went that way. Would you like to come and sit at the front? We've got some questions. I have been told we need to be finished by 8 o'clock, so we've got about 20 minutes. So I will obviously take the opportunity to ask the first question myself, and I've also got a question that's already been sort of presented to us in advance, so I shall ask somebody in the audience. But my first question really is to you. You finished, well, you finished, actually it's not to you because you finished the video. And one of the things in your video, Ashley, you demonstrated that one of the ways to get out there is just to get out there, just to go and do it. But I wonder what the other sort of members of the panel think. Is it always that easy to just go out there? Who would like to first?
Was that if you've never been out there,
So
you really need guidance. As I said, if people suddenly put you in a huge landscape, where do you actually go? So it's really important for newcomers to have a first experience that's really easy and really enjoyable. And of course, the leaders from non-environmental organizations and so on need to represent the members who are coming very well to the site managers so that they can actually together plan a day where you have spaces that you can do what you can do. I remember talking to one of the really progressive site managers of a national nature reserve that was very sensitive. And he actually said, so even in the most sensitive nature, you can always find a spot where even youngsters can bring their football and have a play around kicking the ball around. So you can always find somewhere where you can do something if you try. So this thing of working together, having an open attitude, and trying to find those two things that you need for newcomers. Firstly, the natural environment is a setting for human activities. So you can do other things rather than things directly with nature. You can just sit there and picnic, for example. And then the other side of it is that because you're going into nature, you want to be fascinated. You want the professionals to show you the interesting things. Very often, people haven't been in the countryside, they've seen wildlife films and all that. I often wonder, if people only see things in wildlife films, whether when they go into the countryside, they expect the background music to come on. Or they expect to see all the wildlife that all the filmmakers actually show you. Because you won't see them, they'll run away from all the people. But there are their habitats, so the professionals can see the habitats, they can read the landscape, which hopefully at some time we can all read, and we're excited to be where the creatures are.
I think, despite it not being as simple as just getting outside, I still very much use that phrase, mainly because I believe for the communities that I represent, there's an issue with mentality and attitude. Often there's a lack of self-belief. People just think that they can't go outside, and that's down to, again, culture and lifestyle that I explained before that we have a lack of. So people generally associate the outdoors as somewhere where people like them don't go, but they also consider it to be somewhere where you have to be extremely physically fit, or they think that hiking is for elite athletes, as in not for ordinary people. I mean, to a lot of people in my community, they consider me as a prolific athlete because I run marathons and because I hike a lot. So for me to sometimes explain to people, hey, you know what, getting outside is just a bit of fun. It's about having a good time rather than climbing to the top of a hill. It's about breathing the fresh air and enjoying getting out from your home. I try to encourage people to take small steps, and sometimes that's as simple as stepping out your front door and walking down the street, or stepping into your garden and enjoying what your back garden has to offer if you have a back garden. For those who are busy in the workplace, often driving, do you even remember how it feels like to walk down your own street, for example? And sometimes you have to take the small steps before you can actually venture into nature.
Okay, so I think there's something about, we do have places where it's easy to access. So, for example, our National Trust sites and other places where there's visitor centres, there's toilets, there's trails. If people can make that journey to go to one of those, there should be people who can signpost you out into the landscape. And I think going back to this whole point about gateways to nature, it's about being in a place where you can have that gateway to nature, and if you feel awkward or embarrassed, or you feel that you are scared, because people can be scared by open spaces, there's guided activities, there's guided trails, there's ways in which you can take those baby steps which you just talked about, Haru. I think that's really important. I think there's also something really important that Judy just said, which is about just be. So you can sit in a field, you can lie back and you can look at the clouds and you're already experiencing nature. But it's about stopping as well. It's absolutely about stopping and experiencing, even if it's in one place.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And one of the things, you clearly need to sometimes work on taking people outside. One of the things I find interesting is what you're saying is that there are particular places that people can go. And I remember we had a debate before we were organising this about whether there should be places that where lots of people can go, and perhaps we should protect those places and then protect other places where people cannot go. And that sort of brings me to one of the questions that was posed to us from somebody who's, I think, online, but she can't ask a question when people are online, so I'll ask a question, which was a bit about balance between nature and people. When we are encouraging more people to go into the countryside, then we are also increasing the amount of noise, the amount of pollution, etc., etc. So should we perhaps have places where people can go and places where nature can go? Or how do we protect that balance between people and nature? How do we ensure that both can thrive?
Well, I think the other side of what you're saying that people don't think about is that the more people you can get engaged with the countryside and with wildlife and so on, the more people you get to protect it. Mm. So that also provides a balance as well. So, you know, we don't just think of people as taking from nature. It is nature for people and people for nature. In this that balance that we need to get right, that when we engage people, we also expose people to the needs of nature. So the two things come together, which I talk about, that when you enjoy it, you own it, you love it, you want to do something for it. So you might, by going out, of course, you trample on some things, but so do you come back and do things for nature that keep it to a high standard and help it as well.
Yeah, yes, thank you. And any other, I mean, what about you, Ash? What are you thinking about when you go into nature? Can you go everywhere? Would you want to go everywhere? How would we go about doing that? What are your thoughts?
So a lot of people think that when it comes to getting people with disabilities out in nature, they quite often think, oh, we've got to tarmac all the paths. That is not what I personally would want, because at the end of the day, nature, we belong to nature, we don't own it. And so it's caring about nature, but taking away the man-made obstacles. So things like what's it called? The gates. Stiles, thank you, whoever said that. Things like that just block people from being able to use it, which is great for blocking certain things being able to use it, but then it stops other people being able to use it. So I quite often have issues with stiles and kissing gates, and I've remembered all the names now. But as I say, at the end of the day, it's knowing where to go and where not to go. If there's a path, go on the path. If there's not a path, then you're probably not supposed to be there. And it's just looking after the natural world around you.
I think there's precedent though as well. So where there are paths which are really well designed and people can walk on them easily, they can access them easily, you can also, beside them, bring nature back. Where we've got pieces of hillside where there's lots of erosion, you can have people walking all over the place because there isn't a natural place to walk. If there's a natural place to walk, the hillside can come back. And I think there's something about making sure that the access is managed really, really well. So we look after people and we look after nature at the same time. Not to say that we shouldn't have areas which are protected and people don't have to go to. Here in the Surrey Hills, we have so much space. Even at Box Hill, which is our busiest site, 10 minutes away from that hub, you can find peace and quiet. And there are places in Box Hill where nobody goes. So it is possible to do both, absolutely, and do it really, really well.
Talking about Box Hill, this is a very good cue, perfect timing. I think we have a question from somebody in the audience called Simon Matthews. Aha, there we go. I think I have to tell you to wait for the microphone.
Wait for the microphone. Yeah, as a Dorking resident, it was wonderful to hear and also see Haroon's Muslim hikers to visit Box Hill. Fantastic to see that, great footage there. But how do we support more minority communities to gain confidence in coming, but also maintaining that balance and impact on the environment? And just as Stephanie said, to those hotspots like Box Hill, how do we spread the love a little more evenly around the whole of the Surrey Hills and keeping that balance, between nature and accessibility?
Great question, thank you. Is my mic on? I think it's important to try and understand and also to try and connect with groups like ours. There's so many new groups that have emerged, particularly throughout the pandemic, and it was great that the Surrey Hills AONB team reached out to us, for example, not only to invite us, but to have conversations and dialogue about why our group exists and what our needs are. And one of the reasons why we felt so welcome to come was because there was plenty of conversation in the lead up to our walk, and we curated a walking experience for our community that accommodated halal food, for example, that accommodated our prayer times. Everything was created in a bespoke fashion that would make our group feel welcome. The meeting points, the travel directions, everything was kind of on a plate for us. And for people that are traveling into these spaces for the first time, are going to be anxious about travel. When the train strikes came in, the team at Surrey Hills AONB were giving us optional alternatives. Things like this were really, really helpful. And in a similar way, there's so many other groups with very diverse and complex needs. So understanding what their needs are and perhaps inviting them to come in would be a good step. And I think groups like National Trust and Surrey Hills AONB are perfectly placed to create relationships with groups like ours. I know that they're not just working with our group, but there's many other ethnic minority groups that are working out there. And the second half of your question about, finding the balance, it is important to kind of reference the quote. I don't know if it was from your slides, Judy, from David Attenborough. People won't protect what they don't care about, and people. I'm losing it now. What was the second part of it? It was, and people won't care about what they haven't experienced. Reflect on that ourselves. Why or how would people from our communities or care about the natural environments if they haven't ever experienced it? So it's very important for us to get out there, but equally be aware of the Countryside Code and the burden that can be forced on the environment. And for that reason, for all of our participants, before going on any of their hikes, they get briefed with a version of the Countryside Code that has been produced by us. We worked with Natural England, creating content specifically for our community. So whilst we promote the importance and awareness of the benefits of outdoors for well-being, it is equally important for us to ensure that people are custodians of the environment and treating the environment with respect and for the purpose of protection as well.
I actually think that people enjoy it very much when they feel that they're doing something for nature and for protecting the things that they love. I think that actually the environmental sector, I don't think, does enough about speaking to people about a whole range of things that they can do. For example, we've heard now in this country with climate change and everything and with the use of water, our rivers are tragically drying up and the wildlife really suffering and so on. And, we're such an urbanized community now that our daily lives matter a lot simply about how long do you shower, how much water do we use without thinking. All the things like not turning the tap off when you're brushing your teeth and all this sort of stuff. It really adds up, all the small actions that when you make the links, then we all powerfully work for nature. But I don't think that we actually do it in a way that's systematic, that people can really think about lifestyle, not just coming out to volunteer on the site, but the lifestyle, how much they travel, their choices, their food, and how much land is used by eating meat, and all those things are actually really, really important. And then we feel really connected. During our lives, we think about nature and we care for nature. And when that happens, it's very satisfying. And we appreciate it so much more when we see a place that is very beautiful.
I've got another question that might sort of follow up on this, from how might we go about doing this? And this is a question from Perdita Hunt. Is she in the audience somewhere? There we go. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you for most stimulating presentations. And I want to talk about the arts in Surrey Hills. And we've heard about the Surrey Hills Arts, which does a wonderful job in bringing people together and experiencing the Surrey Hills. But the Surrey Hills have inspired generations of artists and makers like Vaughan Williams, G.F. Watts, Gertrude Jekyll, to name a few. I wondered if the panel might think about, and it's been referenced in a number of your presentations, of how you have seen successful interpretation of the landscape through the arts, bringing more people and creating more well-being.
You can start from something very small. I spoke to an arts teacher once, and she said that just by getting anyone to sit down and draw something, they begin to see detail in a way they never noticed. Because you have to draw it, you really look. When you really look, you're fascinated by actually how something is made up. And that is actually the beginning. And then, of course,
it's a taxi.
This is telling me that I need to go very soon. I have a train to catch, I'm afraid. But it's really fascinating and wonderful to speak to you all. But the arts, you see, it engages your spirit. It doesn't engage just your head. It brings the head and the heart together. And of course, when you draw and when you do things in a group and so on, the whole feel of it makes it very, very different. And sometimes, you know, you hear about stories of research about how when people have been exposed to nature, they end up, because of the experience of their early life, they actually love nature. And then people think that's because of that early exposure to nature that makes that love. And I always say they miss out on something else. Those children, when they were little, their parents took them by the hand and walked them through nature. And not only do they remember the beauty of nature, the whole aura of family life, of that warmth of human relationship. And that's why the community is so important. We're not just going out there, just me and nature. It's me, all the people with me and nature. And all those things, even when you end up being very confident and one day you walk into the countryside alone, all by yourself, confident. And one of my Asian friends, Ginny Reddy, who's a journalist, she does that all over Britain. She puts on a backpack and she just walks through Dartmoor and so on, all by herself. She sleeps out in the open, completely confident. But people like that have carried that experience, that this now belongs to me. There are other people out there. This is a safe place. I'm welcomed and nothing will happen to me. So all those things that actually are carried also when you do the arts and you express things and actually show it to each other as well.
Yeah, and I think there's something about activities as well. So I think we saw some slides of Harvest, which has been a very successful activity, arts activity, which has happened at Box Hill for the last, this year, and then pre-COVID, for 2 years before that. And it's bringing people together to do different things and to share experiences in a place which is wild, which is just a phenomenal thing and extremely memorable. But there's also something about giving people gateways again. So our Summer of Butterflies, we had volunteers in our hub sites who had sheets where the kids could just go up and they could basically draw butterflies. So there's ways of basically bringing art in at a lower level. And then there's everything from, you know, photography and art go together. And people out in the landscape, they can feel inspired to take photos and they can feel inspired to paint. And that happens all over. And it's about us supporting that.
There is an activity you can do if you want to get involved with arts and nature. And one of the things that I quite often like to do is I go out for it doesn't have to be a long walk or anything, or wheel for me, sorry. And I pretend my phone can only take one photo, so I have to get that one perfect photo. And so I go out and I look around and I try to look closer at something and try to find a unique picture thing. And it's a really good thing to be able to make you focus on what, instead of going out with a camera that can take thousands of photos, you actually then start to focus in on what you're doing. And it's a good mindfulness thing as well. You can just look around and go, no, I don't want to take that photo, I want to take this one. And it's a really good way of just getting slightly more engaged to your surroundings.
I'm being told that we have to stop. Somebody's flapping his hands wildly at the back of the room, so it's not my fault. Unfortunately, Judy had left, but yeah, thank you so much for your contribution. I think that was all amazingly inspiring, and I'm sure that they all won't mind if we get in touch with them and ask them lots of questions for other events. But now I'm going to hand over to Gordon.
Wow. I thought that was an absolutely brilliant symposium. We've heard so much today. And it's quite impossible, particularly in view of the time, to even attempt to summarise what we have heard. But the first thing I really would want to do is for you to give a huge hand to all of the speakers who have spoken today. I should say I'm Gordon Jackson. I'm chairman of the Surrey Hills Society and the Surrey Hills Trust Fund. And it falls to me just to make a few closing remarks. Earlier this evening, we enjoyed, you may have forgotten it was so long ago, but we enjoyed the buzz of the marketplace and all of the people coming together, sharing ideas and letting us see a little bit of what goes on in the Surrey Hills community. And thank you particularly to Mandira's Kitchen for providing that fabulous food. I should say for those online, you obviously weren't able to taste it, but Mandira has actually been just appointed as one of the key suppliers for Aldi. So go down to your local supermarket and you'll see what we experienced. This is actually our 4th year of partnership with the university, producing this symposium. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, because the university does just so much more than hosting us here today. Max has had to go, but I'm obviously incredibly grateful to him and his colleagues for hosting this symposium. But the commitment of the staff, the students, and all involved at the university in protecting nature and researching the environment is quite frankly superb, and the Surrey Hills is very much the richer for it. So a huge thank you to the university, and a particular thank you to Ross and Noel from the events team, and to Sam from the Stag TV for helping us put on this symposium and for ensuring that it goes out online. Thank you very much. The debate that we've heard has given so many ideas to me, at least, and I hope to you. And one of the things that it's important for us to do, if I had to summarize this debate in 2 words, it's probably listen, understand. And one of the things we want to do is to understand your views, and we want your ideas, as Heather said earlier. And as you go out, there will be at either door, we will be handing out green luggage tags. Once you get out into the foyer, there are tables with pens, and there's a tree, a wooden ideas tree. And we'd like you to put your ideas as to how we can achieve access for all. It can be a wide idea, or it might just be a specific idea about a specific place. But let us have your ideas. We will collate them, and we will look at them and prioritize them, and we'll look and see what we can actually achieve, particularly with the funding that we have from DEFRA and the Access for All Fund, which is particularly important to us over the next couple of years. I'm sure that the fascinating perspectives that we've heard from all the guest speakers will live with you for a long, long time. But I really particularly want to thank Judy and Haroon, who've already gone, but in their absence, and Steph, and most particularly Ash. I mean, for somebody who has only for the first time spoken to a group like this, Ash, you were amazing. So thank you. On my other side, she's now down on her knees. We've had so much ideas. Veronica has been working away at this fabulous pictorial representation of all of our discussions. She's done this now for us a couple of times, and I know, I can't see it from here, but and nor will you be able to, but it will be brilliant, and we will be taking it once she has finished it, and it'll be on our website, and we will be publicizing it, so keep an eye out for it. But Veronica, thank you so much, and thank you also to the Rutland Group for sponsoring Veronica's effort. Now, last but not least, Heather Kurswell, our wonderful independent chair, has, her role is a voluntary one, and it's not without its challenges, and she's standing down after 3 years. Heather, your dedication and leadership has been outstanding, and at a recent event, you identified the skylark as your spirit animal, having the ability to fly at heights to see the bigger position, but sharing your other great passion, which I know is choral singing. So, as a thank you, your colleagues have clubbed together, and I've managed to keep this away from you. And we're delighted to present you with this very special picture, which is actually done by an artist from Sen Prison as part of the Our Time rehabilitation program, which is promoted by Watts Gallery, Alison's here somewhere, and by the Michael Vara Memorial Fund. And we have also got 30 of these, which we are using for actually distributing around the Surrey Hills and promoting the nature in the Surrey Hills. But Heather, you're not... I was very specifically told that I wasn't allowed...
You're not allowed for me to say anything. Can I just say, I'm totally bowled over. I had no idea that this was happening, and I'm really, really thrilled. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Now, the Skylark also features in our final treat tonight, which is to show you for the first time the wonderful Lark Ascending film that was commissioned by the Surrey Hills and National Trust to mark the 150th anniversary of the birth of Ralph Vaughan Williams. This is set to the poem of another great Surrey Hills resident, George Meredith, whose Flint Cottage at the foot of Box Hill sets the opening scene and whose words inspired the Lark Ascending. So, roll the film.
Rises and begins to round. He drops a silver chain of sound of many links without a break, in chirrub, whistle, slur and shake.
As up he wings the spiral stair, a song of light, and pierces air with fountain ardor, fountain play, to reach the shining tops of day, and drink in everything discerned, an ecstasy to music turned. Impelled by what his happy bill disperses, drinking, showering still, without a break, without a fall, sweet, silvery, sheer, lyrical.
Perennial, quavering up the chord, like myriad dews of sunny sward, that tremble ling into fullness shine, and sparkle dropping argentine. such wooing as the ear receives from zephyr caught in choric leaves of aspens, when their chattering net is flushed to white with shivers wet. And such the water spirits chime on mountain heights in morning's prime, too freshly sweet to seem excess, too animate to need a stress.
But wider over many heads, the starry voice ascending spreads, awakening as it waxes thin, the best in us to him akin. For singing till his heaven fills, 'tis love of earth that he instills. And ever winging up and up, our valley is his golden cup, and he the wine which overflows, to lift us with him as he goes. The woods and brooks, the sheep and kine, he is the hills, the human line, the meadows green, the fallows brown, the dreams of labor in the town. He sings a sap, the quickened veins, the wedding song of sun and rains. He is the dance of children, thanks of sowers, shout of primrose banks, and eye of violets while they breathe. All these a circling song will wreathe. And you shall hear the herb and tree, the better heart of men shall see, shall feel celestially. As long as you crave nothing save the song.
To fill the sky and thrill the plains with showerings drawn from human stores, as he to silence nearer soars, extends the world at wing and dome, more spacious, making more our home, till lost on his aerial rings in light. And then the fancy sings.
audience tonight. Ian, I'm afraid I can't see a thing for the lights, but could everybody please give Ian a huge round of applause? So, thank you. That brings our proceedings to a close. Please have a safe journey home, and please remember to give us your ideas for the ideas tree before you go. And just as a final plug, we have the Surrey Hills Festival at West Horsley Place, their Christmas fair, and I think the details of it are here behind me. There are still tickets available. It's a superb fair, and please, please do sign up for it and go. I think you will really, really enjoy it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.